I don't care how good they is right now. It's a whole different ball game, bro. With somebody holding on your shorts the whole way to the basket.
Legal. And it's legal.
Come on, man.
When you run through the paint and you can get bumped, it's different. And that's my argument with people. It's like, it ain't no disrespect to anybody because they're all great. And you're going to argue back and forth and everybody's going to have their opinion. But I'm saying, which rules are we using?
As far as inspiration, I didn't take much inspiration from Vince.
8 straight NBA Finals, 10 total appearances. On the surface, that's absolute domination. But NBA legend Vince Carter just said something that has the entire basketball world questioning everything we thought we knew about LeBron's legacy. And this wasn't some emotional hot take. Carter came with receipts, cold hard facts, and historical context that's impossible to ignore.
You just have to find, maybe you don't play Bron as many minutes in the first quarter and bring him back, a little later in the second quarter, he could play longer stretches that way. It's just something they have to tweak and figure it out.
Carter didn't show up to throw shade. He came to tell the truth. In early 2025, during what seemed like a routine retirement interview, someone asked Carter about LeBron's place in NBA history. That's when Vince decided the pleasantries were over. He started diplomatically, "I respect LeBron." The room exhaled. Everyone expected the standard praise. Then he dropped the hammer. But let's be real about what we're actually calling dominance here. The interviewer's expression said it all. Pure shock. Then Carter went straight for the jugular. That Eastern Conference from 2011 to 2018, that wasn't dominance. That was an open freeway with zero traffic. Dead silence. You could practically hear jaws hitting the floor. But Vince wasn't finished. He doubled down hard. The path LeBron had to those finals wasn't just easy. It was one of the smoothest roads to multiple finals in NBA history. Mic drop moment. Within hours, that soundbite exploded across every platform. Twitter erupted. Instagram turned into a war zone with LeBron supporters clashing against old-school basketball purists. And here's what's really telling. Behind closed doors, multiple former NBA players quietly co-signed Carter's take. They just didn't have the courage to say it publicly because they knew the backlash would be ruthless. But Carter didn't make that statement recklessly. He brought the data. And when you examine the numbers, they tell a compelling story. Yes, LeBron reached 8 consecutive finals from 2011 to 2018, a feat that sounds superhuman until you break down exactly who stood in his way.
That's well said, and that's what I said, because you're going to always ruffle feathers. If you're a diehard Bron fan, you think it's disrespect when you say otherwise about him, Kobe, and Mike. So that's just, it's going to be an ongoing battle because unless they ever played against each other. Just imagine them playing against each other.
Whew. So for the record, you got MJ, Kobe, and then LeBron?
Yes. Can
LeBron, in your opinion, with LeBron's maybe 2-3 years left, maybe 4, does he have an opportunity in your mind to possibly jump Kobe?
He has an opportunity. And it's just gonna be based off of
the Eastern Conference during that stretch wasn't just weak, it was historically anemic. Teams with barely above 500 records were being labeled contenders simply because somebody had to fill the playoff bracket. Most seasons, the East's second-best squad wouldn't have survived the second round out west. Some wouldn't have made the Western Conference playoffs at all. That's not opinion, that's documented reality. The win totals paint an undeniable picture. During that 8-year dynasty run, you could count on one hand how many Eastern Conference playoff teams hit 55 wins or better. Meanwhile, the Western Conference was an absolute gauntlet, stacked with 55-plus win teams year after year. Out west, legitimate championship contenders were getting bounced in the first round. We're talking about squads talented enough to win it all, eliminated early because the competition was that savage. Carter specifically pointed to LeBron's Miami years, 2011 to 2014, as prime evidence. When you compare who the Heat faced in the East versus what Western Conference teams battled nightly, it's not even in the same universe. LeBron's path looked less like a championship gauntlet and more like a coronation ceremony. That's why Vince's words hit with such force. The numbers completely validate his argument. The truth can be uncomfortable, and this truth is cutting deep. The Celtics, their Big Three dynasty was crumbling, held together by athletic tape and nostalgia. The Pacers had heart, but be honest, they weren't beating the Spurs, Thunder, or Warriors in a 7-game war, not remotely close. Out west, completely different universe. And that's exactly Carter's point. While LeBron navigated a soft Eastern bracket, the West was pure brutality every single night. San Antonio was still running their dynasty like clockwork. Popovich, Duncan, Parker, Ginobili executing basketball perfection. Oklahoma City featured Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook at their absolute apex, demolishing opponents. The Clippers brought Lob City to life with Chris Paul orchestrating and Blake Griffin throwing down poster dunks. The Warriors were constructing what would become the greatest team in NBA history. Houston had James Harden torching defenders at will. Even Memphis, gritty, defensive-minded Memphis, was grinding teams into dust with their suffocating physical style that could humble anybody on any given night. Every Western Conference playoff round was a heavyweight fight. Championship-caliber franchises were eliminating each other before the finals even started. Spurs versus Thunder, 7 games of absolute chaos. Warriors versus Spurs, 6 games of elite basketball. And here's the kicker. Those teams would have steamrolled through the Eastern Conference without breaking a sweat. When Vince Carter said all this, it carried extra weight because this man lived it. He competed in both conferences. He didn't speculate about the difference. He experienced it in his joints, his lungs, his body, every single game.
I wanted to get your take on LeBron because you've played against him since he was a young pup. What's the biggest difference of him then and now in terms of how he just keeps getting better?
Dedication. He has goals in mind, what he wants to accomplish, and it's clear that he wants to be the greatest. You know, when he's saying, I want to play so many years, like I'm saying, I want to play as long as I can. He wants to be the greatest. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, those are the people that we throw around. He wants to be there. So I think now...
Carter described moving from east to west as jumping from recreational ball to combat mode. The pace, the physicality, the talent level, everything intensified tenfold. Western Conference road trips were grueling marathons. One night you're in San Antonio facing tactical perfection, the next you're in Portland against hungry young talent. Then you're flying to LA to battle Lob City. After that, you're in Phoenix getting outrun. Every city, every arena, a legitimate contender was waiting to test you. Now, contrast that with LeBron's Eastern path. You'd face Miami or Cleveland, sure, but after that, the Pacers, the Hawks, maybe the pre-championship Raptors. All respectable teams, but none genuinely built for championship warfare. Out west, you were fighting for survival. Out east, you were trying not to get swept. Carter didn't sugarcoat it. The West was where championships were actually won. The finals? Most years, that was just a formality. That statement sent shockwaves because everyone knew it was true. By the time the finals arrived, the real battles had already been waged out west. Then there's LeBron's roster situation, which complicates the underdog narrative even further. In 2011, LeBron didn't just join Miami, he architected a super team. Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh weren't role players. They were all-stars in their prime, champions by pedigree, built to dominate. That wasn't a team. That was a precision-engineered weapon designed to obliterate opposition. And in the East, it worked flawlessly. No franchise had the firepower to compete. The Celtics' big three were aging out. The Bulls had Derrick Rose, one transcendent star before injuries derailed everything. And everyone else was just hoping to maybe steal a game. When LeBron returned to Cleveland, he ran the identical blueprint. Recruit stars, construct another powerhouse. He orchestrated Kevin Love's arrival while Kyrie Irving ascended to superstardom. 3 all-stars at their peak, surrounded by perfectly complementary role players. Meanwhile, most Eastern Conference teams were fortunate to have 1 all-star on their entire roster. The competitive balance was tilted from day one. Out west, entirely different story. The Spurs didn't need a super team, they had a system. Pure, disciplined, fundamental basketball that could dissect you without a single ego involved. The Warriors didn't purchase their greatness, they developed it organically, cultivating Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green into lethal weapons. That's why Carter's critique resonates so powerfully. It's not rooted in jealousy or animosity, it's grounded in experience and objective truth. The East was LeBron's playground. The West was the proving ground. The Thunder didn't buy championships. They drafted and developed their core. They grew together, absorbed defeats, learned and evolved as a unit. Those Western Conference teams battled each other every season on equal footing. No shortcuts, no manufactured advantages, just balanced, ruthless competition where nobody had an unfair edge. Vince Carter didn't mince words. The LeBron stacked the deck in a weak conference. That's not dominance, that's strategy. Smart? Absolutely. Legendary? Possibly. But fair to compare with what Western teams endured nightly? Not even close. This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, especially for LeBron's devoted fan base. Carter posed the question that reframes the entire debate. What if LeBron had spent his prime years in the Western Conference? Would he still have reached 10 finals? Would he still have made 8 straight? Carter didn't think so. And when you map out those hypothetical matchups, it's difficult to argue otherwise. Imagine this scenario. LeBron's Miami Heat 2011 to 2014 competing out west. First round, Memphis Grizzlies. That grit and grind machine that turned every game into a street fight. You're getting physically punished every possession. Every point is earned through blood and sweat. Survive that, and what's waiting? Either the Spurs or Thunder in round 2. Both championship-level juggernauts, completely different styles. One series, you're battling Tim Duncan's timeless excellence and Popovich's strategic genius. The next, you're trying to contain Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook at their explosive peak. And if you somehow survive both wars, now you're facing either the ascending Warriors dynasty or the Clippers' Lob City mayhem, both ready to end your season. Compare that to LeBron's actual Eastern path. First rounds against the Charlotte Bobcats, pre-Giannis Milwaukee Bucks, or that early Brooklyn Nets team that scared nobody. Then maybe the Pacers or Derrick Rose's Bulls before injuries destroyed that squad. By the conference finals, you were typically facing the Hawks or Raptors, solid franchises but nowhere near championship ready. Everyone watching understood the reality. Those teams were hoping to stay competitive, not genuinely challenging for the title. Then, history provided the real-world test case. When LeBron finally moved west to join the Lakers, what happened? Year 1, no finals. Didn't even make the playoffs. After 8 consecutive finals in the East, he goes west and can't crack the postseason. That result alone validates everything Carter was explaining. The competition wasn't just tougher, it was fundamentally different. It was survival basketball. When Carter's comments hit the internet, the reaction was instant pandemonium. LeBron's massive fan base flooded social media like a tidal wave. The quote went nuclear, debates turned toxic, and personal attacks started flying. The default defense became, Vince is just bitter because he never won a ring. But that was pure deflection, noise designed to avoid the actual conversation. As the full context spread, though, things shifted rapidly. People started genuinely listening. Analysts who covered the Jordan and Kobe eras began speaking up, and suddenly the conversation divided the basketball world into 2 distinct camps. On one side, younger fans who grew up watching LeBron dominate, unable to accept that maybe his path wasn't as treacherous as they believed. On the other, old-school fans who watched Jordan tear through stacked conferences and saw Kobe survive those Western Conference bloodbaths every postseason. They were nodding in agreement with everything Carter said because it aligned with what they'd witnessed for years. Eventually, even current players showed quiet support. They didn't have to explicitly endorse Carter's take. You could tell by the tweets they liked, the cryptic interview comments they dropped. Everyone understood the subtext. One veteran even told a reporter anonymously, "It's crazy that we can't even discuss this without people losing their minds. Vince is right and everyone in the league knows it, but nobody wants to say it publicly because the LeBron brand is too massive to challenge." That quote ignited the internet because deep down, people recognized its truth. Questioning context isn't hate, it's honest analysis, and that's exactly what everyone's been avoiding. The question nobody wants to confront directly: does this change how we evaluate LeBron's legacy? That's where the conversation goes silent. Because if you accept Carter's argument, if you genuinely examine what he's saying, you have to reconsider everything. 10 finals sounds like a basketball fairy tale when you say it quickly. In one sense, absolutely, it's legendary. But when 8 of those came through a conference that couldn't compete with the West on any meaningful level, the narrative shifts. This isn't about diminishing LeBron's greatness. It's about telling the complete, honest story. So now, the floor is yours. What do you think? Does Carter have a legitimate point, or are the rings and finals appearances enough to cement LeBron's legacy? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's have an honest conversation.